The story I'm about to tell you might seem like just another elderly couple's passing. Sad, but expected. After all, when a 95-year-old man dies alongside his elderly wife, most of us wouldn't look twice. But what if I told you that behind closed doors of their Santa Fe home lurked a killer so silent, so deadly, yet so unknown, that even now most Americans have never heard its name? This is the shocking truth behind the deaths of legendary actor Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa. A story about a deadly virus hiding in plain sight that could be in your home right now. On February 26, 2025, a quiet neighborhood in Santa Fe, New Mexico became the center of a heartbreaking discovery. The bodies of 95-year-old acting legend Gene Hackman, his 65-year-old wife Betsy Arakawa, and even their beloved dog Zinna were found in their home. At first glance, everything seemed normal, peaceful even. There were no signs of struggle, no forced entry, nothing that would suggest foul play. It looked like a sad but natural end for an aging couple. But sometimes the most dangerous threats are the ones we can't see. When investigators arrived at the scene, they immediately began examining every detail. They tested the air for carbon monoxide, negative. The gas company was called in to check for leaks, finding only a minor issue with a kitchen stove burner, nothing significant enough to cause harm. The home was undisturbed, suggesting whatever happened wasn't the result of an intruder or violence. As detectives pieced together the final days of the couple, they discovered that Betsy had recently picked up their dog from the vet on February 9th after a medical procedure. This explained why the dog was found confined to a crate, a detail that would normally raise questions. Authorities meticulously reconstructed Betsy's final movements. On February 11th, surveillance footage showed her visiting local stores, and email records confirmed she'd sent her last known communication that same day. After that, silence. No calls, no texts, no emails. Her phone, still under investigation, might hold more clues, but one thing was becoming increasingly clear. Something sudden and devastating had happened in that home. When Dr. Heather Gerald, New Mexico's chief medical examiner, received the bodies, what she discovered would send shockwaves through the medical community and beyond. Betsy Arakawa, a woman in relatively good health for her age, had died from something most Americans have never heard of: Hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, or HPS. This severe respiratory disease, caused by hantavirus infection, had filled her lungs with fluid, essentially drowning her from the inside. The symptoms: fever, muscle aches, and respiratory distress had likely appeared flu-like at first, masking the deadly reality until it was too late. Gene Hackman's autopsy told a different but equally tragic story. The legendary actor had died from hypertensive and atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, in simpler terms, severe heart problems. His body showed evidence of multiple prior heart attacks, and his kidneys had been damaged by years of high blood pressure. But perhaps most heartbreaking was the contributing factor noted in the report: advanced Alzheimer's disease. In his final days, Gene likely didn't even comprehend that his wife had passed away beside him. As his heart finally gave out, he may have been unaware of the tragedy unfolding in his own home. So what exactly is this killer that took Betsy's life? Hantavirus pulmonary syndrome is a rare but deadly disease that most people never think about until it's too late. Unlike COVID or the flu, it's not passed from person to person. Instead, it's carried by rodents, particularly deer mice, which are common throughout much of North America. When humans breathe in particles from infected rodent urine, droppings, or saliva, the virus can take hold. The danger lies in its stealth. Initial symptoms mimic a common flu: fever, fatigue, muscle aches, dizziness. Nothing that would immediately send someone running to the emergency room. But within days, the virus begins its deadly work, attacking the lungs and causing them to fill with fluid. Breathing becomes difficult, then nearly impossible. By the time many victims realize something is seriously wrong, they're already in respiratory failure. And here's the truly frightening part: approximately 38% of people diagnosed with HPS don't survive. That's more than 1 in 3. In New Mexico, where the Hackmans lived, the mortality rate is even higher, closer to 42%. The state has recorded only a handful of cases in recent years, but each one represents a life-threatening emergency. Rural areas like Santa Fe, with its open landscapes and natural beauty, also happen to be prime habitat for the rodents that carry this deadly virus. A home that seems perfectly safe could harbor an invisible killer. Investigators believe Betsy may have been exposed while cleaning an outbuilding or storage area on their property. Unlike their main residence, which showed minimal risk factors, other structures on the property had signs of rodent activity. A single afternoon spent cleaning an old shed or garage could have been enough to expose her to the deadly virus. And because the symptoms initially seemed so benign, she may have attributed her early discomfort to simple exhaustion or a seasonal bug. The New Mexico Department of Health conducts environmental assessments in cases like these, looking for potential exposure sites and risk factors. Their investigation of the Hackman property revealed concerning signs of rodent infestation in some of the outbuildings. A common situation in rural properties, but one that carries hidden dangers few homeowners fully appreciate. What makes this case particularly alarming is that this happened to a couple with resources and access to information. If it could happen to them, it could happen to anyone. Let's look at the timeline of this tragedy. On February 9th, Betsy picked up their dog from the veterinarian after a procedure, explaining why the animal was confined to a crate when found. On February 11th, security footage and receipts show she visited several local stores and sent her last email communication. Then, nothing. Based on the medical examiner's findings, experts believe she likely began experiencing symptoms within days of exposure, perhaps mistaking them for simple fatigue or a minor illness. As her condition rapidly deteriorated, she would have developed increasing difficulty breathing. In her weakened state, she may have been unable to call for help. With her husband suffering from advanced Alzheimer's, he wouldn't have been able to recognize the emergency unfolding or seek medical assistance. Their remote location, chosen for its privacy and natural beauty, now worked against them, isolating them when they most needed help. What makes hantavirus particularly dangerous is how quickly it can progress from flu-like symptoms to respiratory failure, explains Dr. Elena Martinez, infectious disease specialist. Many patients don't seek medical attention until they're already in severe respiratory distress, when treatment options become limited. And because it's so rare, even medical professionals might not immediately recognize it, potentially delaying crucial interventions. The tragedy of Betsy Hackman's death is compounded by the fact that with earlier recognition and intensive supportive care, some patients do survive HPS. But isolated in their home, with an elderly husband unable to comprehend the emergency, she had little chance. By the time they were discovered, it was far too late for medical intervention. What's particularly chilling about this case is how easily it could happen to anyone living in areas where these rodents are common. Rural properties, vacation homes, storage sheds, and garages can all harbor rodents carrying the virus. And the activities most likely to put you at risk are everyday tasks: cleaning out a rarely used space, moving stored items, or simply working in areas where mice have been present. The virus can remain infectious in dried rodent excrement for a significant period. This means areas that haven't been cleaned regularly can become dangerous over time. Sweeping or vacuuming these spaces can actually increase risk by sending virus particles airborne, where they can be easily inhaled. Something as simple as opening windows in a storage area or using improper cleaning methods can create a deadly situation. In response to this high-profile case, the New Mexico Department of Health has intensified public education efforts about hantavirus prevention. Their guidelines emphasize sealing entry points to prevent rodents from entering buildings, setting traps to control populations, and using extreme caution when cleaning areas that might be contaminated. If you must clean an area with potential rodent infestation, experts recommend wearing rubber gloves and a properly fitted respirator mask, not just a simple dust mask. The area should be thoroughly sprayed with disinfectant before cleaning to reduce the risk of particles becoming airborne. Using a solution of bleach and water can effectively kill the virus on surfaces, and instead of sweeping or vacuuming, which can aerosolize virus particles, use wet cleaning methods like mops and damp cloths. The case of Gene and Betsy Hackman highlights how devastating this disease can be, even to those with resources and access to health care. Their deaths have brought renewed attention to the dangers of hantavirus and the importance of prevention. Public health officials hope this tragedy might save other lives by raising awareness of proper precaution. What makes this story particularly poignant is the image of Gene Hackman, once one of Hollywood's most powerful and commanding presences, rendered helpless by Alzheimer's as tragedy unfolded around him. The man who portrayed tough, resourceful characters in films like The French Connection and Unforgiven was unable to comprehend or respond to the emergency in his own home. His death, attributed to heart disease compounded by his neurological condition, came as he remained unaware of his wife's passing from this rare but deadly virus. Gene Hackman retired from acting in 2004 after a legendary career spanning more than 6 decades. He received 2 Academy Awards and was nominated for 3 more, establishing himself as one of the most respected actors of his generation. In his later years, he turned to writing novels and lived quietly with Betsy in their Santa Fe home. Their relationship had begun controversially. She was his physical therapist during his divorce from his first wife, but had endured for decades, with the couple marrying in 1991. Friends described them as private but happy, enjoying the peace of their New Mexico home far from Hollywood's spotlight. Their dog Zinna, who also perished in this tragedy, had been a beloved companion. The fact that Betsy had recently taken the animal to the vet suggests she had been feeling well enough to handle normal responsibilities just days before the virus took hold. This case serves as a stark reminder of the hidden dangers that can lurk in the most innocent-seeming places. For residents of rural areas throughout the American West, Southwest, and beyond, the risk of hantavirus exposure is real but preventable. Simple measures like proper food storage to avoid attracting rodents, regular inspection and sealing of potential entry points, and appropriate cleaning methods can significantly reduce risk. Public health officials emphasize that awareness is key. Knowing the symptoms and seeking medical attention immediately if you develop fever, muscle aches, and respiratory issues after potential exposure could be life-saving. And for those cleaning rarely used spaces, taking proper precautions isn't just good practice, it could be the difference between life and death. The deaths of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa have revealed a threat many Americans never consider. While hantavirus cases remain rare, typically fewer than 30 reported nationwide each year, their severity and high mortality rate make them a serious public health concern. If this could happen to a wealthy, well-connected couple in Santa Fe, it could happen to anyone living in areas where these rodents thrive. As we reflect on this tragedy, we're left with important questions about awareness and prevention. How many other cases might go unrecognized? How many mysterious respiratory deaths might actually be attributed to this silent killer? And most importantly, what can we do to protect ourselves and our loved ones? The New Mexico Department of Health now recommends that all residents in rural areas familiarize themselves with hantavirus prevention measures. They suggest regular inspection of homes, garages, and outbuildings for signs of rodent activity, proper sealing of potential entry points, and use of appropriate cleaning methods in areas where rodents may have been present. For those experiencing suspicious symptoms after potential exposure, immediate medical attention is crucial. The tragedy of the Hackman case is that it was potentially preventable, says Dr. Robert Chen, epidemiologist with the New Mexico Department of Health. With proper awareness and precautions, exposure to hantavirus can be significantly reduced. We hope that by sharing this story, others might be spared a similar fate. As we conclude this investigation into the deaths that shocked Santa Fe and the nation, we're left with a sobering reality. Sometimes the most dangerous threats are the ones we never see coming. In the quiet corners of our homes, in rarely visited storage spaces, deadly viruses can lurk unseen. But knowledge is power, and awareness can save lives. The next time you decide to clean out that rarely used shed or storage space, remember the story of Gene and Betsy Hackman. Take precautions, wear proper protection, and know the signs that something might be very wrong. In the fight against invisible killers like hantavirus, your best weapons are awareness and prevention. This silent killer might be lurking in your home right now, but unlike the Hackmans, you now have the knowledge to protect yourself. Share this video with anyone who lives in or visits rural areas. It might just save a life.